Okay, so Cole, Jim O'Neill and I are good friends and have been for a long time. And you probably know Jim teaches a class in entrepreneurship, and he's met all of these great entrepreneurs. And I asked him for some suggestions. He says, I just met this guy, Kol Galauey, who's probably as great an entrepreneur as I know. And so tell us what's going on there, because I think you've created a lot of excitement in a lot of different areas.
Yeah, so can everybody hear me if I talk this volume?
Yeah.
That sound okay?
Yeah, our speakers are pretty good, our loudspeakers. We can hear you.
Well, tell me a little bit about, I want to keep this to 30 minutes so we have plenty of questions and it makes your time worthwhile in the evening. I was initially trained in neurophysiology, so brain sciences. I'm a physical therapist, a clinician who has experience mainly with children and adults with brain injuries, significant injuries that would limit their ability to move their arms and legs, sit up tall, walk, run, play. My initial training was about what the brain can do for that. And then I went and did some specialty training in developmental psychology about the way that the environment, families, friends, social aspects drive the ability to get around. And then I went and got a research job and was studying babies and how they move. And so I'm not a bunch of things. I'm not a business person. I'm not a classically trained entrepreneur. I don't know accounting. I don't know marketing. In the business world, I don't have traditional training. What I do have is a very clear problem to solve and a very reality-based environment to solve it in. So I actually have a very clear problem, and I have the tools with which to assess the problem, and then I also have the tools with which to solve that problem. And in my area of business, which is assistive technology, I'm often interacting with multiple types of people. Often this is engineering-driven field. So the latest and greatest technologies come along. The trouble with the latest and greatest technologies are they're built out of not having a clear problem defined, not having it built in an environment that is reality-based, and they don't have the tools they need. And so what happens is you get a very expensive piece of equipment that to an engineer looks perfect, to a marketing expert can be marketed, to the funding and the financial guys and gals, it can make a profit, but it doesn't deliver a solution to a problem for an actual person. And everything was fine in that industry until I started modifying toys. The typical device, the typical product in my field is a power wheelchair. So a wheelchair that's for a child or an adult. It's 4 wheels, motors, and it's promised to get you around all over the world. It's supposed to go everywhere that you need to go. The lower priced devices are $25,000. Who pays that? The government, largely, through insurance or a combination of different types of government agencies will pay for that. Now that's the low end. The high end is $45,000 or $50,000 or $60,000. What do you get for that? At the lower end of $45,000, maybe even the cheap end, which is $10,000 or $15,000, you get a joystick-driven which is just a little joystick, kind of like a stick that you drive around. You get a joystick-driven, 150-pound device that demands ramps to be able to go into your home. It demands a brand new vehicle to carry this giant thing around. And once you get it to your home, you better have a lot of room. No apartments, no smaller homes. You better have a very large home with very open area. And yet, the industry, which had very little competition, was living off of a very high-priced device. Transfer over into my lab where we're studying babies. I got a government grant to study how small mobile robots, wheeled robots, would impact a child's brain and behavior. And we showed some very positive ideas about that. We started babies as young as 6 months. We got you in a seat. When you drove around several times a week for 6 months, your group outperformed a group that didn't have that in the way you thought, the way you talked, the way you walked, and the way you interacted with other people. Starting at 6 months of age, very young. The industry waits until you're 5 years old before they allow you to move independently. What that means is if right now you had a baby that was born with a brain injury, they would not be a candidate for getting independent mobility, the ability to drive around their space, until they were 5 years. So for 5 years, you were passively moving your child around. That's bad for their brain, that's bad for their body, that's bad for families. But that's the situation we were in. I had 2 robots and a government grant and some good data, and yet when I went out to talk to families and clinicians, at the end of my talk, people were like, great, stop, stop, stop. Where do I buy it? And the first time I said, well, I'm not that kind of guy. I'm a researcher. I'm not a business person. Oh, well, when will I be able to get this? I have children in my clinic, or I have a child at home. They're 1 year old. I'm convinced now of what you're saying about early. I get the problem. I get the gap. I get the solution. Where is the commercial solution? Well, you got to understand I'm not that kind of guy. Multiply that times 6 months of telling audiences that, and no amount of drinking makes you feel any better. You feel like a fraud. You feel like a failure. Interestingly, the university system was rewarding me. So at the same time that I was being told, you're not delivering the product to who actually could use it, I'm being told by my environment, my academy, my university, you're doing great things. You're bringing in grant money. You're publishing papers. You're doing presentations all over the country. You're going to get rewarded for that. And of course, internally, I had serious conflicts. Which is it? Am I the greatest thing ever, or am I a complete fraud? And that actually was the turning point. I couldn't do that anymore. I couldn't stand in front of you and other people and say, I know what the gap is, I know how to solve it, but yet I'm not going to take that extra step and do something about it. So what we did was, we didn't do a startup company, we went to a toy store. And we started building modified toys, because we knew that the problem was not that you needed a fancy piece of equipment. The problem was that you needed a way for your family to transport a lightweight device all over your community so that you could get high doses of mobility. So fast forward now 3 years. How do I know that we're doing something right? We have something like 14,000 followers on a Facebook site. I don't have a company. I don't market. All I do is teach families and clinicians to go to their local toy store, their local hardware store, their local fabric or craft store, and lightly modify a $100 toy with about $100 worth of materials to get their kid moving. Several years ago, we made the decision, and it was the right one, to both patent this and to give it away. The university loves patents, yet they don't know what to do with them. You line up patents like they're the end product. At universities, oftentimes you have people that have patents all over their walls and very little impact on individuals, because the university is just now getting into academic industry interfacing across its spectrum outside of engineering. So right now what I do is I spend my time running workshops for families and clinicians. That's interesting because no one takes this kind of product directly to the consumer. My consumers, remember, my most closely tied consumer doesn't have a job, they don't vote, they can't even walk, they're only 6 months old. So I'm constantly relying on adults to make decisions for them. So my stakeholders, I have to please mom and baby, but mainly I have to please mom. Mom's the one that's going to go buy the device and provide it to her baby, not baby. And I think that's not uncommon in business, is you have multiple stakeholders. You have to really find out who you're servicing, who's making those decisions. But for me, it's moms. It's also clinicians who aren't mom. Mom knows baby, but clinicians think they know a lot about special needs babies. So sometimes there's a conflict there. So I've got multiple constituents. That's why we train families to build, as well as clinicians. And if you were a group of clinicians, I would tell you, if you like what I'm doing, that's really great. And if you hate what I'm doing, that's great too. Because 14,000 people following a Facebook site that doesn't market, and that you have moms from Tokyo talking to moms from Topeka, Kansas in the US about their babies, tells me that something's hit. I just got back from this weekend from an industry invitation. So the largest pediatric power mobility company, a Swedish company called Permobil, has been running these workshops, sponsoring me these workshops, and they're using these as focus groups to get trade secrets on how to build the first commercial device that's a plastic-based small unit. Instead of 150 pounds, my units are 20 pounds. Ramps, you don't need them. Small house, great. Big house, great. Outdoors, yes. Indoors, yes. My unit has Disney behind it. My unit is a toy. It's got eyes. It's Lightning McQueen or Tow Mater. They have multi-billion-dollar marketing behind it that I've piggybacked on. So when a family sees this ride-on car, they don't see a medical unit. They see a toy. So the industry is now interested in how do they capitalize on what I've done? How do they replicate that and keep it profitable? And they've crunched the numbers. And Permobil thinks that it can solve this by offering a plastic-based power wheelchair that's basically looks like a toy and acts like a toy for under $1,000. They're going to open that in February of next year. And my guess is in the assistive technology world, people will giggle for a couple of minutes and then break out into a sweat. Because it's going to change things. You're offering a $25,000 unit, and now you have a competitor offering a $1,000 unit. Your unit weighs 200 pounds, their unit weighs 25 pounds. Your unit is a medical thing that's often colored black and makes kids run away. Theirs has a race car or Star Wars or Lego or Pokemon motif and makes kids cry because they don't have one. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of, I mean, you guys are smarter than I am in terms of the principles of business that we've sort of tripped across and got right. But I think there's some really basic principles there about serving consumers. Oh, the other thing is that all our engineering meetings, all our key meetings, if we're about to meet on something important, where do we go? We don't go to a boardroom with fancy smart technology. We go to a daycare that has toddlers and babies to crawl all over us. Because engineers solve problems, but they don't identify problems very well. They solve them perfectly. But to identify a problem, you have to, for me, you have to have babies crawling all over you. And I've had too many times where engineers have tried to build something and halfway through the process said, now we've got it, now we have to take it to the babies. And the babies have basically said, they voted by their behavior, this is a piece of shit. And the engineers look at me, and they look at the baby, and they look at me, and I say, you know, your consumer just told you, it's crap. You can't argue with them, mainly because they don't talk yet. So, you know, when you see an engineer looking at a baby, almost in tears going, but it's cool, don't you get it? It's really awesome. It's got height and no. A crying baby tells you, try again. So they get it very quickly, and so my engineers now don't feel comfortable drawing out plans, even thinking about components, unless they're in a toddler classroom being crawled over by toddlers. That's also where the creative inspiration comes. That's where you get the inspiration. So whatever business entrepreneurial focus you have, make sure you're not doing your key creative thinking divorced from that environment. And here's the biggest key that our program, our trade secret, really our only trade secret. We don't know anything. We start there. When we have a new concept that somebody comes up with, we start with, we don't know what we're doing. Yeah, but what about the competitor? Forget the competitor. We don't know what we're doing. Who does? The multiple people that will end up using your service or your product. You have to go to them, sometimes hidden, and watch their behavior and talk with them, not with a preconceived notion of, do you like this product A versus B? But if you're launching something from concept to commercialization, our trade secret that we keep quiet is we constantly doubt ourselves. We doubt ourselves and say, we don't know what's going on. We have to go listen and understand what the rhythm is and then fill that need. We don't generate needs. Our consumer, a baby, doesn't give a shit about its persona or how people see them or whether they're cute or not. They are brutal consumers. They either will drive something and they'll like it and it'll get them out in the world, or they won't. And so we're a little bit unfair. It's a little bit unfair that we're not dealing with an adult mentality at the baby side. Now, remember what I said? Flip that over. The first consumer is actually mom. And mom does care what she looks like. And mom does care that the device has a social signal. And moms don't want to call out anymore that their baby is different. By the time we get them at 6 months, most moms have been told so often, your baby's different. Your baby can't. Your baby can't. Your baby shouldn't. It can't. It's this. It's that. We enter the room and ask them to go to a toy store with us and pick out a toy which they modify. So again, that's sort of the general story. I think the unpacking of this has gotten so much buzz because there's so much in here. There's a do-it-yourself component. There's a decentralization of medical care. You don't have to wait for insurance to fund this. You can raise a couple of $100 and do this yourself. There's the other thing about decentralization of medical care is the empowerment of the consumer. You don't have to wait for a scientist or a research lab or the pharmacology industry to build you something to help your child out. You do it yourself. There's the customized aspect of this. When I build the car for my kid, first it's not a build, it's a modify. Most of the car is already done. All the sophisticated stuff's done. What you're doing is customizing the interface between the baby and the car. So it's light modifications, but it's a personal touch. It's a personalization of a t-shirt, it's a personalization of a car, it's putting your stamp on that. It's participating in the process of the product being formed, personally. And it's also, it's also a giving back. We have a lot of parents, a lot of families that once they build their own car, their second thought is, I'd like to be able to build a car for another kid in my community. I'd like to come to Facebook and post the videos and the pictures. I'd like to donate some money to your cause. And they're also completely freaked out. Some of the community is completely freaked out that I give this away. We just generated about $25,000 last week from Facebook, and we don't solicit for donations. And I think that's going to actually be increasing. So we are actually probably, in a small business way, going to start generating maybe $50,000, $75,000, maybe $100,000 in a couple of years, $100,000 US per year based on micro donations from 50, 60, 70, 80,000 followers across the planet. So it's my market, remember, is a very low number of units. There are very few, in general, special needs children compared to typically developing children. But they're completely underserved. And from day one, we had this strange idea that we wanted to go planet-wide, that we thought that we really could get a message out planet-wide. And so we jumped on Facebook quickly. It took about 1.5 years before what's happening happened now, which was every post gets about 3,000 or 4,000 people following it across the world. And we're just starting, and we haven't really marketed, and we haven't had that great publicity. We just got on national news in the US last week. I give a TED Talk in September. I think we're going to be in National Geographic next year, maybe a cover. So we're still before the big bang. We don't have a media department or marketing. We don't have a small business. We're not making money off of this. But I think people are interested in this entrepreneurial sort of fearless aspect of it because it does have some principles. So let me stop there and again, most people in the room aren't going to be into babies as much as I am. They may not be into toys as much as I am. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think, what your aspirations are, where you are in your life, how this strikes you. I'm most interested about how you see us from a business standpoint, and I don't have any preconceived notions that I'm going to be able to give you any insight, but I would really appreciate your thoughts on what you think what we do, how that fits in what you're learning.
We're going to by the way, thank you, Cole. Thanks for those inspirational comments. It just makes too much sense. You wonder why it doesn't happen more often. But we're going to pass the mic around here and try to accommodate you and hear what the audience has to say.
Great, thank you.
Show us some picture or some kind of model product that you talk?
Sure. Let's see, how would I do that? Can I just launch a PowerPoint onto there, or how would I show you a...
Just a second.
Yeah, you can.
Sure. By the way, I would be happy, I can send you a press packet that basically has PowerPoints we've made presentations on, videos. You're probably not as interested in the actual children using this device, but I'm happy to send you everything.
And what would that be? A PowerPoint file, or?
It would be a series of PowerPoint files. It would be a series of videos. It would show some of our media.
That's great.
The Nation 12 video. I mean, if I can show you a video through here, I can show you some of the media that we've received, and you can see how other people, like more of a marketing standpoint.
I'm going to turn it over to the techies.
Okay, great.
And give you some direction.
Here. In the classroom, Xandra's got a lot of really good friends.
Not like your parents?
In more open area situations, you can kind of get a little left behind.
I have lots of kids that aren't.
friends are hard to make when you're not local.
When he's on the bike, he just often just gets this really big, like, happy grin on his face.
I want you to feel like you have control over your own happiness. And I know for young children, that's attached to your mobility. Here we are. We keep a variety of cars so that we can mix and match parts. I'm Kol Galauey, founder of Go Baby Go, a project to increase exploration in kids with special needs. We take off-the-shelf ride-on cars and we modify them lightly. The materials of interest are PVC, nuts and bolts, things you get at your hardware store. I came to Delaware in 2000. And started a traditional research lab studying how kids learn to move their bodies. There are no commercially available powered wheelchairs for children that are under 3. Out of frustration, myself and a high school research assistant a couple of summers back went to Toys R Us. We jacked up all the small cars, took them all off the shelves. The manager comes running, "What are you doing?" And we said, "We're having a lab meeting, of course." And we went and solved it for $100 for a ride-on car. And $100 worth of materials from Home Depot, we could get the same kind of mobility. That was too good to be true. Fast forward 2 or 3 years, and now we're modifying ride-on cars all over the country. We're in front of 20 to 50 families and clinicians' workshop, teaching them how to modify cars. We provide very basic YouTube videos that parents and clinicians can view. They can build a car off of them, combine that with the manual that we send out, have an electrical or mechanical engineer come by and certify it, you're ready to go.
You can see a very typical design platform.
I don't know why we felt the need to give it away, except I think everybody would do that. There's no reason to hold on to this and fight for a territory when there's literally hundreds of thousands of kids all over the world today sitting still. Now it becomes a chess match of how quickly we can get it out. Children in from the community into the early learning center gym. Plop everybody down in a car, invite our toddler and preschool friends to just play. The adults back off, and you get a whirlwind of socialization and mobility.
So Sarah doesn't have a reason to keep her head up. But when she drives her ride-on car, she has a reason. That's the accelerators behind her head. Xander has the big 4x4. By making it a simple switch that you can have to stand up to make it go, it requires him to have to get stronger in his legs, stronger bones, and that'll get him ready to throw those crutches away. That's exactly what we're after. A typically developing kid and a special guy bonding. That's a big friend, little friend. And Xander even mentioned, like, why is he following me around? And it was like, because you're a superhero.
When he uses the stand-up car, not only can he keep up with the friends, but sometimes the friends have to keep up with him. And so it kind of puts him more in a place of like being the leader as opposed to just being the follower.
It's a motorcycle.
Just the love of chasing after a child and yelling, "You better come back here right now, young man, or you're going to get run over." There are a lot of kids out there that never get told no or come back here because they don't have anywhere to go. And once you give them a chance to go, they'll drive to you a little bit, and they're going to drive away from you. And so when Xander runs away from home, then I know we're good.
Thank you. I agree with that too. I tell people in audiences that they should do one of two things. They should either quit their day job and come work with me, or if they have a really great job, then at least spread the word, or at least really steal my stuff and go make money off of it. About 50% of parents that contact us don't have the time, or they do have the money to pay someone to do this. So there is a business opportunity, I think, with make it yourself, do it yourself type of technologies. With 3D printing coming on very heavily, it's going to shift things to more consumer-driven manufacturing, not just consumer-driven products, but the consumer is going to get the idea that they actually can have a deep say in what they want to do, and more importantly, that they're going to do it. In the States, high school kids are making hands and arms for people in their community with 3D printing. And I can show you, there's, see, that's not what I wanted to show. The PowerPoint here. A really great example of this. I don't know if you can see. Can you see that screen?
Yes, we can.
You can?
We can see it.
Okay, so I don't know if you can tell what you're looking at there. Can anybody tell what product you're looking at?
What is it?
What do people think that the product is here? What's
Artificial limbs.
Aesthetic.
I think I heard it. Artificial limbs. Right. So we have artificial limbs that don't look like artificial limbs. These are. This is the future of prosthetic, where if you happen to have your leg or both legs or an extremity of some type, arms or legs, removed, then you get a say-so in what your limb looks like and functions at. And for example, heaven forbid that you have both of your legs taken off in a bomb or by an alligator or by a car, and you're maybe 5'11" like me, and you love basketball. Well, if I'm going to have new limbs put, how about give me some 6'4" limbs? I'd like to be 6'4". I'd like to be able to dunk the ball, and I'd like to, if you can, make my my 100-meter dash a couple of seconds faster. And that kind of conceptual change is really interesting. I think the field needs that kind of change. I know in the States some engineers are building dialysis machines for kidney patients. They can be built for as little as $150 from Legos. And if it was from the University of Delaware, which you've never really heard of that much, people would giggle and laugh and say, it doesn't work. But when it comes out of MIT or Stanford, people giggle and then go, whoa, wait, does it really work? And then they find out it does really work, and all of a sudden there's a problem. Instead of $150,000, it's $150. Now that doesn't mean the dialysis machine works completely. It's not going to be perfect. But you have to justify those extra zeros now. You know, and if you have, for example, in orthopedic surgery, where you're taking out a knee or repairing a hip, for a long time people have realized that the community carpenter tools and the orthopedic surgeon's tools are not kind of the same. They are exactly the same. So why in the States should I have to fund a $700 wrench when I could go to a hardware store and it's $2? That's the kind of paradigm shift we're about to go under. And more entrepreneurial thinkers are jumping on that. They're embracing that. They're not nervous about that. Whereas some of the older, traditional, bigger corporations are not really realizing that quite yet. And in my field, next February, when Permobil rolls in with a plastic-based device for $500 and sets it up right next to the place with the $50,000 unit, it's not that the $500 unit will do everything. It's not perfect. But you have to justify those zeros now. The consumer has a deep choice. I'll also show you, if we have a second, These are $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 devices that help support people to walk. Now, both of these are not in the environment. These two people are smiling because they're getting paid, not because it's super fun to go up and down stairs to nowhere. This device is the Locomat. It moves for you, and you're on a treadmill. You don't go anywhere. This is a bodyweight support unit that's set in a gymnasium. And Xander here is showing off for you a little bit of what the unit does. He can't walk by himself very well. Now what the reality should be is that there should be 1,000 kids around him, and usually there are. They're playing with him, but he's just showing you that. So this is a $60,000 unit, less expensive and more functional for children. It's not perfect. Look at all the nastiness here. That's not great. This is an experimental unit. This is a $100 unit that's put under the bottom of a summer canopy. This is something that in the US you would take out to the beach, right, and put the covering over and have some fun. The technology's stuck under here. And it allows you to be in a living room with mom and sister. And this is a little boy with Down syndrome who needs assistance to be able to stand. And he's very, very young, so he'll be able to learn to stand pretty quickly. But this unit goes in a bag and can be taken places, and it's about $100. This is a ice cream shop where a person surviving a brain injury is serving ice cream to the consumer while she's working on walking. So Anne can't walk by herself after her brain injury. But instead of waiting, we can create an environment where she's working on her legs and her balance, as well as socializing with people, as well as getting paid a wage once she's trained up. And we're just providing support here. Now that harness, by the way, is not going to be okay. We need to make that much more like a shirt or a coat, not like something that looks like an industrial thing. This apparatus costs about $500 to build. This is not rocket science. It's understanding the gap, the problem, the solution. The guy that's getting served right here is an engineer. This gentleman, this is Ralph Cope. He designed and engineered this for us. So I'm happy to send you these PowerPoints and the videos, and some of the PowerPoints actually have sort of business principles. But again, I don't want to monopolize if people have thoughts or creative ideas.
Well, I think we're probably ready to come to an end, but George tells me I get the last question. By the way, your comment about perfection, it's a really good lesson to the future leaders and entrepreneurs that the cost of perfection is just way too high.
Thank you.
And it's just such a good thing to remember, how costly perfection is. But you know what I was interested in, because I hear a lot about market opportunities with 3D printing, and here you have referenced this market opportunity, and I think you were talking about this in the context of the artificial limb market. Is that what I heard?
Could be, yeah. It could be a lot of different markets, sure. Yeah.
So just help me think, what's the application here of 3D printing in the type of stuff that you do?
I think for us, it's that next question of not what the consumer wants, but putting the consumer in the actual pipeline of production. Instead of having the consumer at the end and it falling out in sort of light focus groups, light consumer understanding. When you can start the consumer at the beginning. For example, as a scientist, in my lab, we don't choose hypotheses anymore. we go and identify the community that we're serving, and they tell us what the problems are, and they tell us what they think the solutions are, and then we translate that into something that can come about sooner versus later. So I think, for example, that homes are likely to have some 3D printing capabilities in them sooner versus later, and you might buy software to build, to replace that part in your refrigerator, to replace that part in your body. I think that manufacturing for certain things will become very much decentralized. I think the bigger bang for the buck, the entrepreneurial opportunity, is to have a deeper relationship with the consumer and to have cycles of imperfection, to have the prototyping cycles involve consumers. In my area, again, it's in the second half of the game, you let the consumer try out. Nowadays, it's before you really have any more than a concept. In fact, why should I have the concepts? Why should I have the aha moment? If I'm around my consumers 24/7, the aha moment should be co-emerging between the two of us, and we should partner in that way. It's not so much a buyer beware, it's a buyer come here, buyer hang out with me now, and let's co-develop. That's what we do, is we co-develop technologies in the environment that it's supposed to work, with the people that it's supposed to work on. And so at the end of the pipeline, when people say, how in the world did you ever know that that particular widget or curve is the way to go? How did you know that this was the way to go? And it's like, well, we didn't know. It was a relationship with our consumers, so to speak, our different constituents. And so we have to please baby and mom and clinician and industry and funding. So we have to meet with all of you and have deep relationships, and better yet, another trade secret, have you cross-fertilize. Have the funding agencies in the government understand deeply what moms need. And then don't wait. Cycle through with light, dumb, imperfect prototypes quickly versus that perfection. That you don't know what you're doing. And if you didn't know what you're doing, then you try rubber bands before you did motors. We're addicted to it now. That's the other thing. This is a super creative, entrepreneurial style process that we couldn't go back now if we wanted to. We're too addicted to the relationship and the aha, tingly moments. If we go a week without something creative coming out, we get bored.
Cole, we're ready to call it a day.
Great.
We waited for a while. I don't think there's a person in this room who feels like it wasn't worth it. And you were a great inspiration, as I said earlier, and making a whole lot of sense. We wish you the very best, and thank you very much for participating.
Great. I owe you that. I'll take you guys all out if I ever come over. I'll make it up to you.
We'd love to see those files.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
That'll be.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Yep. See you guys.